Well, good morning, everyone. Thomas Montgomery. It is Monday morning, February 2nd, 2026, and we get together most weekday mornings at 8 o'clock Central to talk about SPEs. Some of you refer to them as SPVs. Rather, you are speaking of a special purpose entity or what some of you call a special purpose vehicle. These are legally compliant ways of being able to access larger amounts of business funding based upon structuring the deal in such a way that, frankly, it's easy for banks to understand and it's easy for banks to approve. We've been talking about the SPEs for several days now. We've had remarkable enrollment. All's going well. Those of you that are looking to raise capital, many of you have come to our website, spefunding.com, and followed the three steps. Those of you who are affiliates have or wanted to become an affiliate, you've come to spefunding.com and here towards the bottom filled out to become an affiliate. So all that's going well. I think one of the bigger questions that's come up that we wanted to address today is in addition to the guaranteed 250,000 of working capital, what else can we do with this SPE in terms of real estate, company automobiles, and trade lines? So that's what we're going to focus on today. So, background again, spefunding.com is the resource site. It will give you at the top of the page an introduction. But the bottom line is it's a real simple process once you understand it. It's atypical, it's not controversial, but it's contrarian. Our approach is advanced. And so, unless you are diligent enough to acquaint yourself with how it works, you'll probably misunderstand it. So that's exactly why there's the three steps for the SPE funding. We ask you to watch the introductory training that's going to help you understand why SPEs are the best way to raise capital, help you understand how it's actually possible that we're able to guarantee a $250,000 capital raise in 30 days, be familiar with what's included, and then the financial model. So that's training one. To watch that is crucial to gain a good foundation of understanding. Then we progress into the advanced training where we explain furthermore, maybe some concepts that you already understand. But what we want to avoid is a client ever coming back and saying, hey, no one ever told me that. I didn't know that. So we want to make sure that we educate everyone up front before they enroll so we're all on the same page. So here we teach the formula for funding. We explain the three C's, what they are and how they're built into the SPE. Again, emphasize how we're going to get that 250,000 in the first month. And again, clarify that it's structured, it's designed to not have any out-of-pocket cost. Doesn't mean it's free, just means that it is paid for out of the financing derived. There are two bonus trainings on the under number two, one of which is the one we did recently about getting a company car. And we've had several of you ask about that. So let's pivot over there. So this is a company car that we recently acquired. We have not taken delivery of it yet. Now, when we talked about it a week or so ago, some of you were a little skeptical because on the website it says it won't be available until March 2026. I can't control what the website says, but it's not true. This is actual live picture. It just landed at the dealership on Saturday. They sent me a little video. This isn't a video, this is just a picture of the video. So this is this car, but when it comes in from overseas, of course, it's all wrapped up. So getting clients a company car, whether it be a Chevrolet, a Porsche, or whatever it is that you want, a dump truck, makes a lot of sense. So we're going to talk about getting company vehicles today, and we're going to also talk about getting company real estate. So this training here talks about getting a company vehicle, and then here we talk about feasibility studies. So I know a lot of people are busy and they just want the money, they just want to go right to funding, but that's too good to be true. We need to have a fundable business to get business funding. And I know you know that, but a lot of people don't know that. And that's why we've taken a very transparent approach to educating people. So before they ever enroll, so they understand these key terms and concepts. So then on step three, it's real easy. Then at that point, we can go ahead and enroll. And there's a link here you click, and we're able to literally get set up that SPE, special purpose entity or special purpose vehicle. If you need a deeper understanding, certainly recommend going back and watching these trainings on a daily basis. We don't want to waste your time or our time going back through what's already available on demand. But in summary, the SPEs are set up to raise specifically $250,000 of working capital. So, what does that mean? Cash that comes in. The question I had from a number of you, Daryl and Dante and a couple others, is okay, what if we want to go above that 250? Well, what we've talked about before is we're setting this up as a management consulting firm that can easily support a $250,000 capital raise. So if we need more than 250,000 of cash, separate real estate, company cars net, separate that away. But from a cash perspective, what do we do? And that's essentially what's addressed in this training. We can either repeat the process and do multiple SPEs, each at 250, or we can do more of a custom build, and a custom build would be where we're changing the industry. And that's what we went into a lot of in-depth conversation in this training, where we can pick different industries that would warrant a much larger capital raise. I'll give you a quick success story. So yesterday on Sunday, we had a client fly in, typically clients that are doing a $5 million or higher capital raise. We normally are asking them to fly in because we want, no offense, but to kind of size them up. Are they really credible? Are they really serious? So we don't require face to face for smaller amounts, but we had a client that flew in yesterday. Now he flew in from New York. He flew his attorney in from California. And then also he flew in his accountant from Memphis, Tennessee. So three of them all flew in to meet with us yesterday. We met for about an hour, hour and a half. So that's common. We're now pretty much, if not requesting anyone that's doing 5 million or more fly in so we can get to know them better, because sometimes people that want crazy amounts of money aren't that credible. This gentleman and his team certainly are. We're actually doing over a 50 million capital raise for them. So in the case of larger capital raises than 250, not a problem. But again, one of two scenarios. We either repeat the SPE model multiple times in $250,000 increments, or we do a custom where we change a custom implementation, change the industry to something that would support a higher capital raise. So today's discussion is both informative to show you what we do when we're setting up the new branch office, and also it's going to help us understand what we do on top of the 250,000 if the client is wanting real estate and or company automobiles, whether it be a low end or a high end vehicle. All right, so let's go through the SPE branch office setup form. So all of you, for instance, that are, if any of you are going through the SPE, you most likely have received this form. We normally will text it to you just because we don't want it to get caught in email. So if you don't have this, let us know, but you should have this. So once a client has said yes, they want to go through the SPE, capital raise, structure of funding, this is normally what they're going to receive. So all of you should have it. Let's go through it. So, special purpose entity branch office setup form. Congratulations on your decision to leverage a special purpose entity SPE for your capital raise. This setup form provides us crucial information to get your files set up properly. And this isn't a contract, and sometimes things change. So we're just letting them know that we can go back and make changes if we need. So at the top, just collecting some basic demographic information. This area here is important because we're only setting up one SPE, also called a branch office, per county, per state. So, for example, if we have one in Dallas, Texas, there won't be others in Dallas, Texas. So, we should have already identified with the client before they get this form what county and state they want to make sure it's available, but we're just clarifying it one more time. So name, phone number, email. Pretty common sense there. So now we need to understand operationally, what is the client planning to do? So let's read through the page and we'll discuss it. While you will own the SPE branch office, we'll structure the capital raise off of it. There's three different options when it comes how it's going to be ran. It's operation. Now, by choosing one over the other doesn't limit or expand their funding, but we do need to know the operational intent, which we're going to go through. So we ask them to initial one of the following. Some people will initial all three, and that gives us absolutely no valuable information to what they intend to do. We just have to interpret that they really don't know. But the request is to initial one time. So when they receive this, it's in an interactive format. So it's not like they're printing it out and writing it in with a crayon. It's an e-form. So here is the first scenario that we can do with the SPE. We can set it up, and then if the client actually wants to operate it themselves, then that is choice one. And that's a good option. It's not the only option. It's not a required option, but that changes a little bit how we're going to implement versus the other two scenarios. So let's go back to the other choices. The second choice is, yes, I'm going to own the branch office, but I don't have an interest. I don't have the time. I'm not going to run it myself. We're going to need staff to run it. And if they want staff to run it, they're still the owner. They're still getting the profits from the operation. And then we can help them with staffing. But we need to know if that's their intent. Because if they're going to be the CEO and actually run it, then they're going to build their own team and manage that team. This group of people want to own it. They want the profits from it, but they don't want to actually be operationally involved. So is everyone clear on the difference between option one and option two? If not, type it into the Q&A, please. Okay, and then third scenario is no, 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 no. I don't want to operate it at all. I'm not going to operate it. I'm not going to have staff operate it. It's not going to run. I'm just using it for a capital raise. And that's okay too. They don't have to operate it. The way that we set up the branch offices, we have the feasibility studies, the business plan, the geographic exclusivity. It's fine for funding even if you don't want to run it, but it really doesn't make much sense not to run it because it's designed to be a profitable business. So, does anyone have any questions on these three options? Because this is crucial. Cameron asked if someone's going to do it twice, would they fill this out twice? Yeah, yeah. So it's per branch office. That's why we're clarifying. So you might have the same name here. You might have Rod Francis and Rod's phone number, 516, whatever, Rod's email, but we need to know which office are we filling this out for? Because it might be that Rod wants to have two. He wants to have one that he's going to operate, and the other is just going to be for a capital raise perspective. Doesn't matter. We're not judging. Well, it does matter. It doesn't affect the capital raise, but it does affect what our role is. Because obviously, and we need to support you in operating it. If you don't want to operate it, but you want to have other staff, then we need to work together to get staff and get them trained. Or if you don't want to operate it at all, it makes it a lot simpler on all of us, but you're missing out on income. Make sense? Cameron, did that answer your question? Yes. So each Each SPE, each branch office, is distinct with its own set of paperwork. Okay, so that's the first issue that we need to understand so we're able to support the client properly. Now, let's move over, and this is where we're getting into the topic of real estate. So, what we said several times, and it's consistent with the agreement, we promise, we guarantee a minimum of $250,000 capital raise. And that's normally a working capital loan, normally low interest, normally 10-year, 120-month payback. But the structure is we're going to set up each SPE's corporate office at our headquarters, and then they're going to have a local office in their market in that county or state if they're going to operate. If they're not going to operate, then they don't need a local office. That local office in that county and state, if they want to operate it themselves or through staff, then through delegation, then we need to know, are you wanting to buy the real estate for your local office or do you want to lease it? Some of the concerns and confusion last week was, oh, well, if I want to go buy an office, that's going to chew up the 250,000. There's not going to be any cash left. That's not a correct interpretation. That's why we're having this discussion. If we're going to go get a company car or company real estate, that's above and beyond the 250. It doesn't eat up the 250. But we need to know what the plan is. So let's go ahead and dig in to the branch office location discussion. So it states we're going to set up your corporate office in our commercial office building for the capital raise. So that's always going to be the case. Because if you understand the concept of the SPE is we need to demonstrate to the lender that we're planning on expanding from where we're at to other one or more other markets. And by doing so, we need to be in business at our corporate office, and then we're planning to expand into local communities. That's the way that this works really well. So we're going to always start their main office, their headquarters, using our commercial address because nothing else is set up yet. They could always switch it later if they want. So hopefully that makes sense. So technically, think about Starbucks. Starbucks has a headquarters, and I didn't look it up. I don't know where it is. I think maybe it's in Seattle, Washington. I'm not sure. But Starbucks has a headquarters, but they have a bunch of offices, or not offices, but retail locations across the country, across the world. So the corporate office, we will know up front, we provide that free, what the address is. We don't know yet where the local office or local offices will be, and that's okay. That won't prevent us from being able to move forward with funding. But what we need to glean from this form is it the client's intent to own the real estate for the local office or just lease it because it's going to affect the loan package. So let's continue on. Important. You'll answer the following questions and then complete the subsequent pages, which gives us your corporate address. And it's not shown on this page, but the subsequent pages are us giving them a free corporate address so we can get all the paperwork done. We don't need to know yet where the local office will be as far as the street address. We do know, of course, it would be in a given county or state. So what we're asking here is straightforward. And again, they could change their mind. But the first thing that we need to know is if they plan to purchase or build. So these fall into the same category. In other words, do they want to own a physical office building? Or conversely, do they just want to lease it? So let me ask those of you, we have 537 of you on this morning. What do you think are the pros and cons of buying and owning an office building versus just leasing it? What do you think the pros and cons are if you could type that into the Q&A? While we're waiting for your answer on that, pros and cons of owning versus leasing office building. Daryl asked if you're going to have two. Yeah, there's only going to be one per county, so you'd be in two different counties, Daryl. That's the point. All right, so pros and cons if someone is going to use the SPE as the structure for the guaranteed capital raise. We're going to need to create the story. We need to have the loan package, the feasibility study. We need to be able to explain to the lender what we're going to do, why we need the money, and it's going to be under expansion. Lenders love expansion more than just about any other category. It means that we're taking what's working well at our corporate office and now we're moving it to other communities to get closer to our client base. That's a home run. All right. So as far as owning a building, one of the things, of course, and it's as Matthew said, it's an asset, right? It's not an expense. If you pay a lease, you pay a rent payment, a lease payment every month. You get an office to use, but you're really paying someone else's mortgage. If we do this, you own your own building. And when you own your own building, you have greater tax deductibility, but you also have the ability for appreciation. So, in other words, over time, as that building becomes more valuable, your your um, equity in that building grows. And then also we could, and most obviously, what we could do is we could lease some of this space out. Different lenders, and we've got lots of different lenders for getting the office buildings, but the main two categories would be SBA or non-SBA. If we do an SBA loan called a 504, which is pretty easy to get for a physical office building, we need to tell them that we're going to use at least 51% of the space for our own business, but the other 49% can be used by other businesses. In other words, we can become a landlord. And if we do this right, we should be able to go buy a building, use our portion, lease out, rent out the other, and actually generate enough income from the tenants to pay the whole mortgage payment, which technically then we're getting the building for free because other people are paying our mortgage payment. So that makes a lot of sense. Don't have to do it this way, but it makes a lot of sense. In our case, that's what we did. So we first bought a commercial lot that had a commercial building, but then we built an office building and we have almost, not quite, but about 2,000 tenants in our commercial office building. And so that generates a significant income every month, separate from everything else we do. Well, we could do the same thing with these branch offices. If they want to build or own, another build or buy, a physical office building, it could be something very small just for themselves, or it could be immensely large where they generate massive rental revenue. Up to them. But the point specifically is that if we're going to go build or buy a physical office building, that doesn't reduce that 250 of cash, 250,000 of cash. That would be on top of it. If we wanted to go get a Porsche 911 GT3 like we just got, that would be on top of it. That wouldn't take out of the cash. So then the other option, of course, is to sign a lease for that local office. And as Rod mentioned, lease is simpler. You can certainly get into an office quicker to just lease versus buy. But I see Eric brings up a good point, and he's a little more sophisticated than a lot of us. Eric realizes that if he builds into his plan that he's going to buy or build an office building, that opens up more borrowing capacity. Because in addition to getting the money to buy the real estate, which isn't difficult, then we also would need to furnish it, equip it, maybe remodel it. And so we could certainly bring in a lot more money. So if we're looking for ways to get more than just 250,000, which is normally working capital cash, out of each SPE, what we can do is add equipment, company cars, and/or real estate. From our perspective, we need to know what the given SPE client's plan is. Either is fine. It's not like one's better than the other to us, but we need to know. And then the second and the final question, the follow-up question is, have you already identified this specific property? So in other words, no, I want a lease. Well, we're asking, have you figured out where you want to have your local office? Have you picked it out? If not, yeah, that's okay, but we need to know. Or if I'm going to buy or build, have you picked where that is? And that would be a yes. Or no, I don't know yet, and that's okay as well. So none of these are obstacles, but I think it was very important for you all to understand that the SPE model, as we've talked about through the other trainings, are set up to clearly get 250,000 of working capital. We can go above and beyond that, and the main two categories that we can go above and beyond that with is not necessarily more working capital, but different. We can build into the loan structure real estate if you want it, and or company automobiles are two common examples. Daryl's asking about the type of building. So he's specifically asking, could you go buy a restaurant as your office building for to run your SPE out of? Sure, sure. And you could allocate some or part of the space of the restaurant that is your local office. So yes, you could combine you could have multiple businesses within your building. If we're going to do an SBA 504 loan, we need to be using at least 50, we need to tell them we're using at least 51% of it for your business or businesses. The rest could be rental income. But yes, you could have other businesses like a restaurant, like a hair salon, what have you. Okay. Rod brings up the point of leasing with the option to buy or option to purchase. Well, we're going to call that just a lease because initially all it is probably a deposit and agreed upon monthly payment. So, sure, you might have a hybrid agreement where you have the option to buy it later. What we need to know is how to structure your loan package. And if we need to build in money for the purchase or building of a physical office, we need to know that, and that goes on top of the 250. If we're starting with just a simple lease, that's all we need to know, and regardless of what your intent is to do with that leased property later. So, does anyone have questions, comments, concerns? All right, Mr. Certain brings up a good point, and it's very true. Those of us that have owned commercial property, there's extra responsibilities with it, and so it can be a distraction, right? So, so many things, whether it be upkeep of the property, security, maintenance. If you own it, it's your baby. So you either do it or you have we hired a property manager, but you're going to have someone that's doing a lot of things if you're going to own your own building, where frankly, leasing is much less complicated. But here we're building wealth. We have an asset, not an expense, and we can get passive income from rental. So, but that's a good point, Mr. Certain, is that it's not all a bowl of cherries when you own real estate. So let's kind of wrap it up here. So our goal today was to clarify that with the SPEs, the special purpose entities, we can help clients raise in increments of 250,000 of working capital. If you're not familiar with that, if that doesn't make sense, if you don't understand it, then go to our website, spefunding.com, and watch those videos I introduced you to a moment ago. Once a client has enrolled to participate in the SPE program, then I've shared with you the exact specific form that will go to them, whereby we're going to start gathering information to start structuring their capital raise. The first aspect is, what do you plan on doing from an operational perspective? Any answer is okay, but we need to have one answer so we know. And then if you are going to have an office, which if we're going to own and operate, rather we're going to operate it ourselves with someone else, we're going to need a local office. Then are we going to buy or build, or are we going to lease? If our goal is just to use the SPE, the branch office, just for the capital raise with no operational intent, we don't really need a building, but we could still get a building if you wanted to use it for other purposes and get it underneath the SPE. All right. It looks like John's asking, can we go get real estate and a company car off the SPE right away? And the answer is yes, yes. So we can go buy real estate right away. There's not some aging requirement first. We can get company cars right away. We can get company credit cards right away. We can get lines of credit right away. So yeah, there's not an aging requirement. All right. Well, if there's any other questions, let us know. I would recommend going to spefunding.com. That's your resource. If you want capital, you need capital, learn about it and decide if you want to use this structure. If you're wanting to get paid to help other people, go to spefunding.com, learn about it. You can become an affiliate free and easy. We'll get you onboarded, we'll get you a landing page, and you'll be open for business today. You make 5,000 up front on each SPE that you start, and then also you get a lifetime residual off the capital raises on the back end. All right, thanks everyone. Hope that was useful. Let us know if there's anything we can do, and we'll see you back tomorrow morning. Bye bye.